Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matthew Moreno. And, Dodgers, Matt, still World Series champs one day later. We appreciate everybody joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, those listening after the fact via podcast as well. But, Matt, just about over 24 hours removed from the Dodgers winning their second World Series of my lifetime, their second World Series in the last 5 seasons, excuse me. How are we feeling 24 hours after the fact, now that you've had some time to process and let this settle in?
I don't necessarily know if it fully has yet. I think, and I know we're going to get into some of the, not details, but sort of like storylines and details, like for lack of better words, that have come out with everything. And there's just so many different layers to that game. Obviously, being confident in Jack Flaherty and a stacked bullpen because the Dodgers had rested their high leverage relievers, and then it going south, putting it mildly, very quickly, and to erase a 5-0 lead. And then the Yankees take the lead again, but then the Dodgers claw back and pull ahead. And then Walker Buehler needs to pitch in the 9th inning. And then hearing what everybody had to say post-game, and all the different interviews we have up about Buehler wanting that moment, basically volunteering himself. It was how it came across. And then in a lot of the different articles written by some of the national reporters who get, really behind the scenes type thing, here, basically Buehler didn't give the Dodgers much of a choice, right? Like he told them, if this goes a certain way, like I'm going to pitch. And as a competitor, it's something I like can appreciate and enjoy. And it's what you want to see, I think, from, a team that you're covering and following, is that these guys care and want, to be in those big moments. And not that we questioned it with Buehler, but just to see how much he really does. Because again, his injury history aside, he was pitching on 1-day rest. That's unheard of in this day.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. And you kind of referenced the story of Buehler basically goes to Andrew Friedman the day after starting Game 3 and says, "Hey, if you need me tomorrow, I'm available." And they say, "Thanks, but no thanks," basically, unless things get wonky, is the quote. And then during the game, as things are starting to go sideways, he basically goes to Andrew Friedman. This is Fabian Ardaya reporting this, and says, "Is this wonky?" And Friedman's basically like, "This is pretty dang wonky out there. We need 15 outs, and we've got Alex Vesia, Brusdar Graterol, and Blake Trinan." And I love that Buehler laces up the cleats and runs into Clayton Kershaw. And I love that Fabian has this moment where Clayton Kershaw looks at Walker Buehler and he says, "I love you." Because Kershaw's the one guy that knew what Walker Buehler was about to do. He knows what it felt like. He knows the pressure. He knows the challenges. He knows the highs. He knows the lows. He knows all of it. And Kershaw, reading about Kershaw looking at Buehler and saying, "I love you," before Buehler then goes out and closes out the World Series. Like, I posted the tweet. The tweet is maybe the most retweets of anything I've ever sent on social media. But I basically said I would do more than run through a wall for these two guys that play the game the right way, that have done everything that this team and this organization has ever asked them for. And for that moment to come for Walker Buehler, to me, was among the most beautiful, special things that I've gotten a chance to read about and learn about since last night's moment.
Yeah, definitely. And those two have a good relationship. And it's funny, like if you ask Kershaw about him, like he'll get in some friendly jabs of like, "Oh yeah, like he's, hard-headed and this and that. And like, there's no telling Walker Buehler what to do and stuff like that." But then he'll get into a serious answer of no, like, he's really developed. And yes, Kershaw will say, like, I really haven't been of much help to him, just because obviously Buehler's fastball velocity at its peak was much better. Like, they're just different profile pitchers when they were both at the top of their games. But yeah, and Buehler has always been very effusive of Kershaw. And even as Kershaw has entered the back end of his career, Buehler has been the first one to say, "Hey, like, you need to respect this guy as one of the best pitchers this game has ever seen." And that he is still, when healthy, very good. And I know that's something you and I have tried arguing with, not arguing, but taking that stance with, maybe arguing in some cases, depending on what night of the week it may have been. So yeah, it's nice to see their relationship kind of get shared with the public spotlight, because I've been fortunate enough to be part of some of those interviews in the clubhouse and just overhear things when we're in the clubhouse and stuff like that. So for it to be out, there's that clip of them hugging right
It's
after the
amazing.
game ended.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that stuff I think is great for the fans to get a chance to see.
Yeah, and it's all of the things that make me feel. And I'm curious how you would answer this question. We talked about this in the first hour of a 3+ hour post game show that happened last night. I was there for the beginning. Shout out to Anthony. I believe Anthony was there for the full 3 hours and 15 minutes. I mean,
He did,
that guy
yeah.
deserves an award for that. We had tons of special guests. Greg Bergman popped in for a little bit. Obviously, Scott carried a lot of the load. I was there for the beginning. Sebastian was there. You were there. Blake there with Landon Knack and Dino Ebel. So we missed that last night. It's a great show. But I told him, Matt, that the most emotional moment for me last night was actually not the Dodgers actually winning. It was the moment I knew for a fact Walker Buehler was going to come in the game. And there was something, I don't know if poetic is the right word. I don't know if romantic is the right word, but there was something powerful about knowing everything that Walker Buehler had been through, that he was going to come into the game on one night's rest, but the Dodgers were pushing all their chips to the middle of the table because if this backfires, it hurts them twice in game 5 and game 7. And yet he comes in and he gets the job done. That moment for me, Matt, was the most powerful emotional moment. Was that the same for you, or was it the moment they won? Was it something different? Like, what's the moment that sort of resonated most with you from that game 5 victory?
Well, first, I think the saying is, how can you not be romantic about baseball? So I
Yeah.
think that's just the word you're going to have to go. You're just going to have to call it romantic and let it stand. Um, yeah, I mean, I think a little bit in that same sense. It was hard for me to really get too wrapped up in that, just because, and I don't like not I'm not complaining by any means, but logistically for us to get the stream set up, to get our recap and different things that we
Yeah.
needed to publish if the Dodgers won, like my mind was all over the place of okay, like lining all that stuff up. And so it was hard for me to fully like embrace or not understand, but realize maybe the entire like the scope of everything. And that's why,
Yeah.
I shared with you that I was up late last night, kind of finishing everything. And once I did finish with work, like I did then go back and watch like that bottom of the ninth inning and then some of the celebration again. Cause at that point, like the work for us was done.
Yeah.
Like it's, sun was starting to come up it was up on the East Coast already. It was starting to come up over in the West Coast. But yeah, I think looking back, that has to be it, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't know, the fifth inning, the rally, like sure, but not to take anything away from the Dodgers. A lot of that was predicated on the Yankees just blowing it, for lack of
Yeah.
better terms. Like if the Dodgers had strung together, 3 hits and then a grand slam, then it's like, oh man, okay, again, I'm not taking anything away from them, but like, oh, they
Yeah.
really did it like fully on their own merit. So it wasn't necessarily that. So then you kind of process of elimination, we've discussed everything that Walker Buehler has gone through in his career this season, to be in that moment to, it's not 2 days rest or 3 days rest, which we've seen from some pitchers in the past. Buehler,
Yeah.
as you mentioned on the stream last night, started on short rest for the Dodgers, no questions asked, because he who we won't say his name wasn't of his shoulder. The Dodgers didn't manage his workload properly,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
his shoulder wasn't built up right. So yeah, I mean, it has to be, that was a special moment, and I said it, it's hard. We try to be a little analytical and cover the team as objectively as we can. Moments like that, it's hard to not be happy for the person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said last night, that's kind of what I love about getting to do this show is we can be fair and we can also be fans at the same time. And we don't claim to be anything other than those two things. Is fair about the Dodgers, honest when things aren't going well, honest when they screw up, unbiased when we need to be, while at the same time not hiding the fact that when Walker Buehler comes out into the game, we all feel a certain type of way about a guy like Walker Buehler. We're obviously clearly rooting for him. We want the best for him. And so a moment like that is just a memorable one. Let me ask you one more question before we get into some of these topics we've got tonight and some super chats that are starting to fill as well. I posted this question on social media on Twitter today. Is there an image from last night's game that stands out to you the most? Obviously, there's Walker Buehler closing the game out. I joke that one of my favorite is Garrett Cole pointing at first base. That will be something that I forever remember. Obviously, Aaron Judge dropping a baseball. There's some options there. Mookie Betts, some of the emotion that we saw from Mookie Betts, both during the game and after the game. Is there a moment that sort of is burned into your memory that you will remember Game 5 by?
It's the Buehler one. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, not to take anything away from the team accomplishment that they had, because it was a total team effort. Game 5 to me is going to be Buehler's game. And
Yeah.
and in some sense, like the playoffs, it may be like he'll share it with Freddie Freeman, I think, because of the dramatics that Freeman, everything he had to go through, and it turns out much more than we knew publicly. And I know we're going to get into that stuff.
Yeah. Crazy.
But to see again, like, and I will admit there is a little bit of bias in my answer, because Buehler was a pitcher that I enjoyed watching when he was healthy, and kind of on the trajectory of, okay, this guy's going to become the number one for the Dodgers once Kershaw passes the torch, excuse me. And to see him struggle throughout the year and go through all of that, and then start to really put it together in the playoffs, when if he doesn't do that, the Dodgers probably aren't in this position, because they barely sort of got there with their pitching as it is. And that was with him emerging better than I think they anticipated. So, yeah, I mean, the one picture obviously is, him standing there. There are a bunch of different angles of it, of some from center field, some from the Dodgers dugout, some from the first base side of his outstretched arms, and doing the whole, the gladiator, are you not entertained thing. That to me, I think, will be kind of a lasting memory and moment in picture.
Yeah, it's crazy to look. Walker Buehler, 13 scoreless innings to end this season. And really the only inning in the postseason he gave up any runs was all of the 6 runs that he gave up in the pot to the Padres, which, look, we could go back and forth for days about how many of those runs were actually his fault. When you give up 5 straight ground balls and get no outs out of the 5 of those, I mean, if anybody knows how Garrett Cole felt, it was probably Walker Buehler, going back to that San Diego performance. But then he goes 4 shutout innings against the Mets, 5 shutout innings against the Yankees, and then a perfect 2 strikeout 9th against the Yankees in game number 5. And so kudos to Walker Buehler for everything that he accomplished in that one. Let's get to some of these super chats here. Freedom says, personally, the Yanks were the team I prayed that we would play and whoop their ass. Mission accomplished. Yes, absolutely. We got another super chat from Freedom. He says, amazing comeback in the 5th. We have to give most of the wins to Freddie, a stud in every sense of the word. He was the backbone of the Dodgers too, carrying our team to the finish line the whole series. It's kind of crazy, Matt, when you think about the last 5 years that the 2 World Series the Dodgers have won, how sort of iconic of performances they've had. Like Corey Seager in that 2020 run, ironically enough, against Freddie Freeman in that NLCS, 2 guys that were just like, well, whichever team wins, the guy's going to win the MVP, because these guys were untouchable. And then for Seager to continue through the World Series. And then for Freddie Freeman, I mean, home runs in game 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the World Series. We're going to talk here in just a little bit about the update on his injury. I just 24 hours removed from this, I still can't believe, because in game 5, everyone's going to talk about the 4 home runs. He had the first big hit of the entire game, which was the 2-run single in that 5th inning, just muscling, classic Freddie Freeman, muscling a ball up. This is a guy who didn't start game 6 of the NLCS because he was too banged up. And oh, by the way, there were people calling for him to be benched because of how bad he looked in that series. For him to do what he did, especially now knowing what we know, heroic does not feel like an exaggeration for the Freddie Freeman that we just saw.
Yeah, and when he hit the grand slam in game 1, obviously the parallels to Kirk Gibson were there right away, and understandably so. It made sense. And even more so now, like that, if with Freddie Freeman, like I know some people were saying, oh, it's just his ankle, whereas Gibson's like whole hamstring was basically torn. Well, guess what? Now we have details that Freddie Freeman played all of October with a messed up rib. So yeah, I mean, you can't say enough about everything he did. And I know you and I were in agreement, like we were singing his praises before this point, just to even be in this position, because aside from the injuries, he, went through the challenge with his son, being hospitalized and needing to be put on a ventilator, and the recovery from that. And as much as, Freddie was comfortable. Oh, did I lose you? Oh, there we go. You're back. As much as Freddie was comfortable returning to the Dodgers, like his son was still going through a lengthy recovery. It wasn't like a light switch where like, okay, he's back from the hospital, everything is great, now I don't need to worry about this. And so just everything he's really had to endure has been impressive. And yeah, can't say enough then. we're going to get into the injury stuff about what he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, let's talk injury here real quick. Jeff Passan puts out an article today that was an absolute bombshell, and I'm just going to read from it because it's pretty unbelievable. October 4th, a day after Freeman finished a news conference in which he declared himself ready to play despite an ankle injury, he retreated to the batting cage at Dodger Stadium. He wanted to take some swings in preparation for a live batting practice session. His side tingled with each of his first dozen swings. On the 13th swing, Freeman felt a jolt through his body and crumpled to the ground. Unable to even pick himself up off the floor, Freeman was helped into the X-ray room next to the Dodgers dugout. The results were inconclusive, and around 9:30 p.m., he received a call. The Dodgers wanted him to drive to Santa Monica for more imaging. He hopped in the car and then an MRI tube. Around 11:30 p.m., the results arrived. Freeman had broken the costal cartilage in his sixth rib, an injury that typically sidelines players for months. Devastation set in, walking hurt, breathing stung, and swinging a bat felt like an impossibility. It goes on to say that his dad said, "Stop, this isn't worth it. I know you love baseball, but it's not worth this." And he looked at his dad and said, "Dad, I'm never going to stop." Then he won the World Series MVP. This was 3.5 weeks ago. So basically everything that we saw from him in the NLCS, this is explanatory for that. And I don't even know what to do with this, Matt. This is a guy who has finger injuries, an ankle injury, and oh, by the way, a rib injury that sidelines dudes for months.
Yeah, I mean the first most impressive thing is obviously him playing through this.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And having the World Series that he did. He certainly did struggle for a stretch, but at the time we were all attributing it to, okay, well, the sprained ankle is pretty bad. Like we've been told it would take 4 to 6 weeks to fully recover. He also had a bone bruise with that, so it made sense.
Yeah.
The second most impressive thing, and I say this a little tongue in cheek, is that this didn't come out during the playoffs at some point because very few stuff is able to be kept secret these days. So that was impressive. Kudos to the Dodgers organization for keeping that under wraps. But yeah, I mean, look, we just spent 3 minutes, whatever it was, praising Freddie Freeman, and now we might sound like a broken record again because he's going to get even more of it.
Crazy.
Doing what he did on it, and it makes sense now. Understanding, I mean, not that I questioned it during the NLCS, but it certainly makes more sense to see like how much he was struggling with his swing. Like it was not him at all. And the only thing that I could at the time I was equating it to was, well, he said this is his first sprained ankle in his life, like. And it does seem to be pretty significant. Like maybe he really just doesn't know how to like be able to push through this. I know that he said he naturally rolls his right foot anyway when he's hitting, and he couldn't do that. So that like everything kind of checked out. And then you hear this, and it's like, oh, yeah, now it makes sense why he was sitting games too on top of it. Like not just struggling, but he sat once in the NLDS and twice in the NLCS.
Yeah.
And the NLDS game that he sat out was game 4 with the Dodgers on the brink of elimination.
Yeah, they were undefeated in games he sat out.
That's true. Yeah. And that was surprising, right? That he wasn't going to be in the lineup for a game where the Dodgers season could have easily ended. You know, going to a bullpen game, we saw it worked great against the Padres. We saw in the times after that how quickly things could go sideways when you're going to multiple relievers. But yeah, I mean, can't say enough about Freddie Freeman. And I think not that he necessarily, I think this like cemented his like Dodger career lore / history type thing. He'd had a lot of good moments before this, but ending it in a World Series, ending it the way that he did, going through everything that he did. I mean, this will be talked about, Kirk Gibson's thing, 80, like how we hear about that every year, every time the Dodgers in the playoffs, right? Like Freddie Freeman is now going to be in that conversation.
I wanted to ask you about that. How many guys cemented themselves eternally as Dodgers in this series? Freddie Freeman, obviously an easy answer. Again, hits in every game of the World Series, home runs in 4 of the 5, an RBI in all 5 of them, 2 or more in 4 of the 5 games. He struck out just 1 time. That was in game 6, scored a run in every single game in this series. Clearly the MVP, did it while injured. Freddie Freeman, legend forever, period. End of story. Guys on my list. I think Walker Buehler, this was an exclamation point. You could make a case that maybe he already had with some of the game 163 type stuff that he had done for the Dodgers, but coming into closeout game number 6 for me cemented him forever. And there's a third guy that maybe this surprises some people. I think Blake Trinan cemented himself as a forever dot. Like 7 outs. Like literally nobody could buy them outs. Vesia came in, got 2. Gratterall came in, I believe, and got 2. Like these guys could not get anything. Trinan in this series, he was the most important reliever in the Padres series. Like no Evan Phillips. I think all 3 of those guys, in my estimation, are forever cemented as Dodgers because of what they accomplished. Maybe Tommy Edman because of the NLCS that he had, made a couple big plays in the World Series, but I probably would cut the line off between Trinan and Edman, but you tell me what you think. Like outside of those 3 guys, did anybody cement themselves as Dodger legends?
The next one I would say is Kike Hernandez.
Okay.
And I think he was on the doorstep of it anyway. And I think he had enough moments this October that as we're discussing, literally like cemented that. Obviously hitting the home run against Yu Darvish in the NLDS. Then NLCS, I don't remember if he necessarily had impactful hits that way. World Series,
he had 3 2-hit games against the Mets. So he had 7 hits, 6 runs scored with 1 home run against the Mets. So he had 2 home runs in the postseason.
Yeah. So I think Kike put himself, and look, even last night, like he didn't hit home runs, but he started basically both rallies with he broke up Garrett Cole's no-hitter in the 4th inning. And then later when the Dodgers ended up scoring their go-ahead run, his single started that as well. So I think he put himself there. You could make an argument for Mookie is sort of an interesting one for me.
Mookie led the team in on-base percentage and slugging percentage for the entire postseason, and I believe reached base in the last 10 straight games to close this one out. So I was going to say, like, Kike Hernandez, I know, like, what the reputation is, but Mookie, by every metric imaginable, was better than Kike Hernandez in the postseason.
Yeah, and what's weird with Mookie is, like, if I had asked you to guess, like, who led the Dodgers in those stats, would you have maybe it's just me, but would you have guessed his name?
No, it would have been tough because he didn't, it didn't feel like for some reason he ever had the huge moment, like he was in the middle of a lot of stuff. He's the guy who Cole doesn't get out at first base kind of a situation, but yeah,
I think honestly, maybe, sorry, not to cut you off.
No, you're good.
What may have hurt him in this regard is we remember Freddie Freeman's home run streak.
Yeah.
But how, like 2 or 3 of those were 2-run home runs, like in the 1st inning, and who was on base?
Yeah.
Mookie.
Yeah. Mookie, Ohtani.
But it wasn't like Mookie hit, a big double and then Freddie Freeman followed with it. Was like maybe Mookie drew a walk or hit a single, and then you remember Freddie Freeman like just getting swept up in everything he did. And so I feel like maybe that's overshadowing, because Mookie's stats, like what they ended up at, don't match like the memory bank and the proverbial eye test, if you will. So it's kind of odd. But if you look at it from a numbers perspective, I think you could say that he did as well.
I mean, he reached base in every single game in the NLCS and the World Series. Like, think about that. In the 11 games in the NLCS and the World Series, he had either a hit or a walk in every single one of those. 2 of them, he did not have a hit, but he finished the postseason. Kike Hernandez had 2 home runs. Mookie Betts had 4 home runs. Mookie Betts scored 14 times in the postseason, 18 hits, 5 of those doubles, 4 home runs, 16 RBIs, and 11 walks. 2 stolen bases, never got caught, 290 batting average. It is interesting because I know what Edman did in the NLCS, and I know what Kike did kind of in the NLDS. But to the point that we're making, and which is probably why I don't have even Mookie, Edman, or Kike in the quote unquote cemented their legacy, is because like those guys had moments, but they weren't World Series moments. They were NLDS moments, NLCS moments. Or in Mookie's case, he didn't have a moment. He was just consistently very, very good throughout. And none of this is disrespect to any of these guys. I'm just saying, for me, I think what Trinan did, like, I'll remember that. I'll remember Trinan getting 7 outs. I'll remember Dave Roberts going out to him and basically saying, "Are you good?" Desperately hoping that he was going to say yes, because they didn't have anybody warming. So if he said no, it would have been like, okay, so you're supposed to say yes because you're staying in the game, but the 2 hands on the chest and then getting 2 more outs. Those 3 guys for me Freddie Freeman, and Walker Buehler, and Blake Trinan are forever legends. So shout out to those guys. Let's get to a couple more of these super chats. Freedom says Buehler came in. I knew we would win. It's over. Shout out to Walker Buehler, by the way, just a 1-2-3 inning, like not putting anybody on, not making us sweat it out with the runner in scoring position, ground out to Muncy. Scale of 1 to 10. How nervous were you when Max Muncy fielded that ball and had to make a throw across the diamond? Were we 10 out of 10 confident that was going to hit Freddie in the chest?
Sure. Yeah, let's just leave it at that and keep going.
There wasn't a single fan that didn't say, please, Max, please, please, please hit him in the damn chest. Hit him in the damn chest. Shout out to Muncy. Juan says Dodgers need to re-sign Teoscar and Buehler as soon as possible. I know you are in on re-signing Buehler. Are you in on re-signing Teoscar Hernandez as well?
I think so. I mean, my only concern there is if it ends up getting into kind of like a 3-4 year type deal and what the money is. At 4 years is where I would start to get a little concerned.
Yeah.
But I mean, would I be overly upset if that's what it took? No.
When do you remember, when does MLB qualifying offer stuff start?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I know free agency technically started this morning, although there's like the 5-day kind of quiet period, I think is what they refer to, whereas you can only negotiate with the team you were just playing for.
Okay. So it looks like November 4th. Contract options are due. So basically team option, player option has to be done by November 4th. And then that's also at 5 p.m. Eastern, the deadline for teams to make qualifying offers. Both of these guys are candidates for that. I would expect Teoscar for sure will be getting the qualifying offer, which is why I think he's going to come back, because I think that's going to scare some teams away from having to give up a big draft pick. It's based, the qualifying offer is essentially the same contract they gave him last year. He's in line for a better one than that. But again, it will just de-incentivize, disincentivize, I don't know what the word is, other teams from coming and getting him, because it will cost them money and a high draft pick. Buehler's the interesting one. We discussed this in our group chat about whether or not Walker Buehler will get the qualifying offer. I think it's a little rich to be offering him a 1-year deal of $20+ million. I know what we saw in the last 3 starts. I hope they pay him. Like I just personally would rather offer him a 2-year contract that's maybe somewhere in the like $28 to $30 million range than like a 1-year deal of like 21-22 million would be me. But I think Teo gets it. I think Buehler is a maybe for me. And it might be a respect thing for Buehler too. With Kershaw, they've always respected him and said, we're not going to put the qualifying offer on you, because if you want to leave and go somewhere else, we're not going to hinder you. We're not going to force you to make a decision before you're ready, that kind of thing. So I don't think it's a 0% chance they treat Buehler the same way.
I'm not as convinced of that.
Okay.
It wouldn't shock me if they do the qualifying offer just for the procedural sake of doing it.
Okay.
And I saw Matty Man when we were discussing Teo. I got stuck between saying Teo and Teoscar. He asked if 20 million a year for Teo. I mean, yes, that would be a
21.05, by the way, is the qualifying offer this year.
But yeah, I mean, Teoscar, like he could get 25 a year would be I mean, I guess to your point though, qualifying offer could change things for him, but in all things being equal, 25 million is probably the minimum of what you're sort of looking at. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, one, yes, if they re-sign both of them, that would be a good start to the offseason in my book.
Yeah, I'm with you. Daniel Berry says, Dynasty, go Dodgers, keep everyone champs. Woo! Laura says, was anybody able to obtain tickets for celebration at Dodger Stadium tomorrow? I want. Did these sell out?
They did. So I know Daniel told it, like somebody he knew was a season ticket holder. They seemed to have a little bit easier time getting them, I think, than maybe the general public. I did see some people saying that when they went into the lobby that it basically was just kind of counting down and then refreshing and kept refreshing, and they didn't even get into kind of the queue to buy. So yeah, and as common sense is saying that sold out and the scalpers prices are going crazy. I did see that as well. Yeah, I mean, can I
say something here at the risk of? I can't believe they're charging people money for this. I can't. I mean, okay, let me rephrase. I can believe it.
Okay.
That's so stupid to me. It's so stupid to me. Like, I understand you got to do assigned seats, whatever, and then you're like, oh, buddy, they're charging for parking too. It's like you won the freaking World Series. Like, let your people celebrate. Let your people enjoy them opportunities. There's a parade. I know the parade's free, yada, yada, yada. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't believe my mom told me about it and was like, oh, they're doing this thing. And I'm like, she's like, I wonder what it costs. I'm like, what? Come on. It's got to be free. And then it's like, oh, no, it's $45 a person, right? $50 a person, something like that. Or was that a
Yeah,
season ticket holder price?
yeah, that I don't know of. I know what Daniel sent us tickets were $45 for a field seat, which
I'm sure there were
that's
some fees associated.
yeah, perhaps that. Well, no, it looked like that was the grand total. I think we got sent
Okay.
the grand total. That surprised me that it was only 45. And I know,
Oh,
like,
you were expecting more.
yes, I thought that they were going to. Hey, they have some Otani and Yamamoto bills to pay down the line, so that
Yeah,
they're
and again,
stacking.
keep in mind the people that are like, what, $50? Again, keep in mind that parking is who knows what to get to the stadium as well.
That's what's going to be interesting to me, because it got up to, I think, $70 for the World Series. So I don't think you can keep it at that for this type of event.
It's outrageous.
But my guess is at minimum it's going to be 25, maybe $30 to park, but not to at the risk of appearing, not, I can't come up with the right word, not caring about the fans in here tonight saying that they weren't able to get tickets. Blake and I will be covering it for the website, so I will be able to see what they're charging for parking as we're pulling in.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Again, people have the opportunity to go to the parade. I think it's cool what they're doing at Dodger Stadium. I think there's an element of like, hey, you can only fit 60,000 people or whatever the number is, Dodger Stadium, so you got to give people seats, that kind of a thing. People are saying parking is $35, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, for one person to get in, that's $80 to go. And look, people are probably going to be happy to pay it. It sounds like scalpers are charging way more than that, which is even worse than all of this. But anyways, there you go. If anybody's got extra tickets and wants to hook Laura up, send her a message in here. Find her on Twitter. Hook her up. Hook up Laura. Okay, let's see. Don't care. Does Freddie go into the Hall of Fame as a Dodger or a Brave? I think it's a Dodger. I think this season, I think that swing, I think what he went through with his son, the way Dodger Stadium treated him, and then he hit one of the most iconic moments. Like, he will be remembered by casual fans as a Dodger, not a Brave, because of the home run he hit in Game 1. I know he won a World Series with the Braves as well, but for me, like, he left Atlanta. It's the same with Adrian Beltre. Beltre left the Dodgers. He was never coming back. Like, I think it's going to be the same with Freddie Freeman. It was a weird exit. I know the relationship he had there, but the moment that he just had, the season he had, the way that fans treated him, I think he's a Dodger.
I think if he wins another World Series with the Dodgers, then yes. What's interesting here is I thought up until last year when we were discussing this for some of the players, I thought that the player chose what cap they're going to wear on their
Yeah,
plaque.
I thought it was.
So that's what I think you and I might have been doing the show and we were discussing it. And then somebody commented saying, no, it's the Hall of Fame that picks. And if I remember correctly, I did, once we finished, I did look it up and that checked out. Well, now somebody's saying not anymore. So anyway, if they were ever doing it, like, to me,
the decision is made by both the Hall and the player is apparently.
Okay.
This is what the internet is telling me. It's never led me astray before. Yeah. Somehow it's a mutual option that they get here.
I mean, look, if Freddie Freeman wins another World Series with the Dodgers, I think he goes in with just the generic cap. I don't know. I think he is appreciative of his time in Atlanta. They drafted him. He grew up there. I don't know if he would want to disrespect them in that sense or potentially, slight them that way. But if he does win another World Series, I think the perception of Freddie Freeman's career will be, okay, yeah, he was good with the Braves, became an all-star, won one World Series, but then completely took off with the Dodgers.
Yeah. Here's a quote from an old article. So maybe this is not accurate, but basically it says that the Hall of Fame decides where the player, quote, made his most indelible mark. According to this guy, the cap decision is made by the Hall of Fame senior staff and research team. Quote, they'll look at a player's career numbers and look at the impact. And quite honestly, it's usually a no-brainer. He said, quote, then we have a conversation with the player because we wouldn't do something unilaterally. So the Hall of Fame basically says, hey, you're more famous as blank. And then apparently the player maybe has the option to veto that decision, agree with that decision or whatever. But again, I think he's going to be remembered as a Dodger. So based on if this is all accurate, I think he's going to be a Dodger. My guess. See, Southern California guy as well. Like, I think there's elements here, and who knows? He's got a few more years to play as a Dodger. Freedom says, looking forward in 25, we may see the very best of our Dodgers if all is healthy. Very scary team this year, next year. That is kind of the crazy thing is you're like, man, imagine if this team had been healthy. Like, imagine if we actually had a fourth starting pitcher and didn't have to punt. Thank goodness, by the way, we don't have to talk about punting baseball games for a long time, but imagine if they didn't have to punt. Imagine if they just had enough arms, guys that could get you outs. They're going to be, I think it's easy to say they're going to be better next year. Like, on paper, they will be much better in 2025 than they were in 2024, right?
You would imagine so.
Obviously we're projecting health for a lot of guys here, but
right,
like
that's
Ohtani pitching, like,
well, that's the Ohtani pitching thing is going to be interesting to me, and I know we're going to get into it about his shoulder injury, but that I think there could be some delays or maybe kind of changes there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. Some Kind of Wonderful says $28 for the most expensive tickets, and it all goes to the Dodgers Foundation. So, do you know anything about this?
I don't think $28 was the most expensive ticket. Maybe remaining once Some Kind of Wonderful got in to purchase. And they are doing, I believe, half or a portion. I don't know if they specified if it was half or just a portion of the proceeds go to the Dodgers Foundation. So it's not, to the best of my knowledge, I have to double check the press release they sent out, but it is, I don't think that it's all of it.
Okay.
I can try. I can try pulling.
As
it
Matt
up.
said, they got to pay. They got to pay for that Ohtani money, that Ohtani deal somehow, right? Yeah, it doesn't say anything. Oh, it does say a portion of the proceeds from the stadium event will be donated to the foundation. So there you go. A portion of them will be dealt. We're going to take off all of Ohtani's expenses and whatever's left over. Anything over 70 million we raise tomorrow, we're donating to the Dodgers Foundation. So there you go. All right. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. Almost 2,000 people in here on an off night. One of many off nights, by the way. Because did you know the Dodgers won the World Series last night? Crazy stuff. I had one other random question for you, Matt, actually, before we get into Mookie Betts trying to fight people and Shohei Ohtani's injury here. Did we make any impulse purchases today? Any World Series memorabilia, gear, autographed stuff? I'm not going to name any names. Somebody on this show, not you, spent a chunk of change in the last 24 hours on some stuff, which is cool stuff. So shout out to them. But did you purchase anything that you're excited about?
So my wife placed an order last night.
Okay.
I don't remember what she got, but for me, it was a sweatshirt and a hat.
Okay. Are we doing Nike stuff or Fanatics? What do we got?
It was Nike sweatshirt, and then the I don't know who makes whatever cap they were wearing. It might be, or it's New Era.
Yeah, Lids or MLB are the two places that I think you can purchase them.
Yeah, and then tonight.
So wait, which hat did you get? Like the standard blue one,
the one that they were wearing, like the grayish snapback, like the yeah. I don't wear hats a ton, so sometimes like they end up sitting in my closet a lot of the times. Yeah. But if I do want to wear one, I know it's there, and that's comforting to me.
There you go.
And then tonight, I was kind of just looking around to see if anything new released.
This is what I'm talking about. This is when the good stuff happens. Yeah. Just so I could just take a look, little nibble, what we got going on.
Came across a black Mitchell and Ness T-shirt that had like World Series champions and some sort of design like in gold that I thought was pretty cool. So that was sort of an impulse thing.
I like it. I, as I posted on Twitter, was in the market for a T-shirt that pictured Freddie Freeman after his iconic home run. And somebody, I apologize, who it was, sent me a link that I was very impressed with. So I purchased a picture of Freddie Freeman going like this on a black shirt. That was awesome. And I purchased, as you know, because we talked about it in our chat, there was some contentious debate about this hat, but I found a hat. Scott and I like the snapback hats that have the rope across the front. I'm just going to imagine everybody in the chat knows who does not like these type of hats and who might have a slightly different sense of fashion and what looks good than people like Scott and myself. And I said, Scott, if you see Instagram hats that you like, you need to send them to me because Scott's an Instagram hat guy. And I found one that's on the MLB shop. And I was like, Scotty, what do we think? And he's like, that's sick. Just bought it. So I'm like, well, then I'm in as well. So Scott and I bought the rope hat. I believe it's white. It's sick. It says 2024 World Series champs, has the LA logo on the side. So we got that. And then was talking to a buddy, and he was talking about, he's like kind of newish to the Dodger fandom. And so he's like, this is like his first, like, it's like me 5 years ago where he just like can't help himself the day after the World Series. He's like, I got to buy this. I got to buy that. And so he's talking to me about hats. And I was like, oh, I got the blue classic LA 2020 world champions on the side. And I was like, I love this hat. It's the best thing I bought. The problem was 1/8 of a size too small. 7. It's just 7 3/8. I need 7.5. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to buy you the 2024 World Series champion one. It's 7.5. What size? 7.5. He's like, low profile. I'm like, nope, give me the original. Bang. So we got 2 hats and a t-shirt, Matt, and I'm feeling great. What's that?
Yeah, there you go. I think what's hard to, well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and stay tuned because our friends at Homage are going to have some gear in the next few weeks. They got to wait a couple weeks, but let's just say, I think people are going to be interested in what they got coming out. So I'm sort of biding my time. That's one of my favorite brands, comfortable stuff. They've hooked us up in the past. And so we got more gear coming. I need to pace last time I bought so much. And then like 3 weeks later, it's like everybody that's not like the official First Dibs licensed people, then they can roll their stuff out. And you're like, well, dang, I kind of like that sweatshirt. And then it's like we get people on the show who are like, hey, we've got the DVD and we've got the yearbook and and all of a sudden I got all sorts of stuff. So I'm trying to pace myself, but 2 hats and a shirt. I feel like that's not bad for the first 24 hours.
No, that's a solid start. You didn't stretch yourself too far yet. The other thing then too, not just the immediate kind of near future, but next year is all the gold. And I see you have some of it, like the Gold Series stuff. Then
totally
gets released,
Mookie
and that's
Betts.
like
they still do this, right? Like obviously, I only paid attention in 2021 because this wasn't released until right before the season. But after you won the World Series, you got to wear the gold laced Dodgers jerseys that Nike was making. It's got I put the VIN patch on this one, shout out. And then we got 2020 World Series champs on the side. It's a Mookie jersey. So I purchased this last time and might be in the market.
Yeah.
So you're holding out?
I think not because it's guaranteed that I'm going to, but I need to be prepared that in case I choose to splurge at that point, that I don't then end up with just a complete surplus of things. Because for 2020, like I did run into that kind of situation.
This is a safe space, and there's only 1,900 people in here, so nobody's going to know this. I may or may not have texted you about a friend who's purchasing some jerseys from a less than reputable source for not even less than the cost of Nike, like pennies on the dollar compared to Nike. So I may have dabbled in some jerseys that you can't buy through Nike, that you can't buy through MLB. So we'll see. My buddy's like, hey, no guarantees on what these look like. Apparently Reddit tells us this person's a good seller, that stuff's going to look great, but no guarantees. I said, you know what, for the price point that I'm entering into this world at, and it's a jersey, we've talked about a gray. I wanted a gray World Series jersey. A couple guys, had some moments in those, and I don't have a gray one yet. So I may have dabbled in a gray Dodgers jersey that isn't sold by Nike. And Matt's a better man than me. Matt said, no, thanks. I'm good. We'll wait for the real thing if we're going to purchase it. But we dabbled in some of that. So I think we're right about $100 day one. So again, I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, that's nothing.
We'll see, though. I mean, last time, because then what comes next is like, pint glass with the World Series. That's kind of cool. I had a 2021. I think it broke, or I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. So, we may dabble in some of that stuff next. And no comment to some of the questions that are coming at me in the chat. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. Nobody's going to see this. This won't be recorded for all of time. So we'll be safe there.
Well, here, one question we can answer. I know we got some more super chats, but Nando's asking, anyone know if or when they'll make the gold trim jerseys? Yeah, we were just discussing that. That's next year. That's closer to
it came out like
day.
It came out in the month or two right before opening day.
Actually, if I remember correct, they might have, because I was at the stadium for the World Series ring ceremony. I'm pretty sure I remember texting my wife like that day from the press box saying, "Hey, like this stuff just came out. Like, do you like this or do you like that?" So I'm pretty sure they might do it when the Dodgers have their home
I'm
opener.
going back to, it looks like April was when Dodgers unveil championship jerseys.
Because they wear them for their first home game.
Got it. Okay, so it's once the season is when they would be available.
At least starting like kind of pre-orders. I don't remember how quickly that stuff.
Yeah, look at this. Shout out to Google. April 6, 2021, a website by the name of DodgerBlue.com, who's always on top of this stuff. Matt Moreno probably wrote this article. Dodgers Gold Series jersey and cap will go on sale Friday at noon at Dodger Stadium. And then Nike was selling them and all sorts of stuff. So there you go. So beginning of April, mid-April, I mean, what? That's like, what are you, 5 months from now? I mean, come on. You got to make all your purchases now. You'll forget about all those purchases 5 months from now. You won't even have to have saved. You'll just be like, yeah, it's been 5 months. We got some money to spend. So there you go. And they are cool. I love this jersey. It's my favorite jersey I own. Mookie Betts 2020. I mean, I knew he was going to be there for a while. His first season as Dodger didn't have a Mookie jersey. And then Mookie cemented himself in Dodger legacy in 2020 with the defensive plays that he made in that postseason, as far as I'm concerned. So shout out to Mookie. Don't care. Does Ohtani owe Roberts a Porsche for winning a World Series? Dave Roberts. Okay. Let me ask you an off-the-cuff question. Rank for me the people who were most responsible for the Dodgers winning a World Series. Freddie Freeman won.
So are we saying just strictly playoffs, like not necessarily because
Correct.
Okay,
From the NLDS game 1 on, the fact that the Dodgers advanced all the way through and won the World Series. I have Freddie 1, and I think I have Dave Roberts 2.
That sounds right. At worst, I think Dave would be 3, but then I don't know. Like there isn't a clear-cut choice to put above him. You could argue Blake Trinan. You could. I don't necessarily know if you could argue Walker Buehler just because as a starter, like you're not pitching as frequently.
Every starter had one awful game where it felt like they cost the team the game. I mean, Buehler, you could make the best case for it because I will defend that he got absolutely screwed in that 7 earned run game. Like I will defend till my death that was a fake 7 earned runs that he took. But all the rest of them, Yamamoto got lit up by the Padres, Flaherty a couple times. Like I don't think anybody's making the Jack Flaherty case today, but yeah, I mean, and even Trinan, he gave up what? He gave up a run in 3 straight games at one point in the postseason. Now it was 1 run and he had like 4 unbelievable performances. But I mean, I think you can make a case Dave is number 1 and Freddie's number 2, to be honest, because Dave, NLDS, NLCS, like nobody was as consistently as important to this team. I know what Freddie did in the World Series, but he sat out 3 games in the first, 11 and wasn't as effective in some of those games as well. So you can make a case Dave Roberts, single greatest contributor to the World Series. I should have come up with that, Matt. That would have been a great tweet. Hey, how about this? Dave Roberts, number 1 most important 2024 Dodger. That would have got some heat.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can make that case. Go ahead and
everybody forget I said that. I'm gonna tweet that in a couple days, and we'll just let that be natural and pretend like you heard it for the first time. Okay?
Yeah.
Rebecca says not even in the top 3. I mean, what am I missing? This is a all Hall of Fame. I mean, we just said people that cemented themselves. My apologies. Dave Roberts cemented himself as a Dodger legend in this postseason. We didn't mention him. I mean, that was look at Aaron Boone, look at Mike Schilt, look at the Mets manager. I mean, this guy managed circles around every single one of them. And he was not perfect, but as damn near perfect as possible. So he was insane. He was on the heater of all heaters.
I will say, so she said Dave's not in her top 3, then I did scroll up. She has Freddie, Ohtani, and the bullpen as her top 3. I was going to say, like, Ohtani had a record-setting NLCS, but it wasn't sort of in the Mookie conversation. Like it doesn't feel like the stats are there and the numbers are there, but how impactful, how much maybe it swung a game. Like, I don't know. Like, I'd have to go back and really look at, Ohtani's home run, like he did hit, I think, the leadoff home run because he pointed to the dugout and then they asked him about it. He said, "Oh, Freddie Freeman told me, to join the party early, not late," because he was hitting, his home run late and stuff like that.
The guy was 0 for a billion in the World freaking Series. I'm sorry. I love Ohtani, but really? Over Dave Roberts?
That's what I think this
You're
becomes
not arguing this.
I think this becomes a conversation though of do the Dodgers get to the World Series without Ohtani in the NLCS? Do they get to the World Series without what Tommy Edman did before that
Edman
point?
for sure. Edman for sure.
That's where I think maybe the rankings can kind of change. If you want to have Ohtani second or third, fine. I think Dave Roberts is probably second or third. So as long as he's in the top three, I don't know if I would necessarily argue too strongly against it. But I don't know. That's what. Look, the beauty of it is we can all disagree. We can all have our picks. At the end of the day, guess what? The Dodgers won the World Series, so at least we're doing this and not saying who deserves the blame.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's interesting. Ohtani hit 230 in the postseason and had a 760 OPS. He basically had the exact same OPS as Teoscar Hernandez. He had a lower. Tommy Edman had an OPS of 850. I mentioned Mookie Betts led the team. He had an OPS of 940. So I just thought what Dave did to handle the bullpen games and again, both times he got accused of punting, by the way. What happened? They won the next game, which was, and you could say what you want about Game 5 of the World Series, but those guys were barely able to get themselves 27 outs. It would have been less available to get 27 outs if he had handled Game 5 4 differently. Freedom, I got 2020 dark blue with the gold lettering is badass. I was hoping they would do 2024 the same way. And they might, if you're talking about these jerseys and the hats. And
or is it, is it your hat maybe? Cause you have the gold, that's the Gold Series hat also, right? Or
this is not. Oh, this okay. Is actually, this cool. is my spring training hat from 2023.
Okay.
But they did have the gold hats.
Yeah.
Which I probably should have thought of and waited for.
Again, whatever you saw with the Gold Series in the past, expect the same, if not maybe more items this year. What I did notice is available, regardless, kind of on whatever website you're looking. There's a lot more player jerseys, I guess is the vernacular to use there. There's a lot more of those, which I don't remember them always having in the past. And so, kind of the Gold Series jersey, the Gold Series hat, that stuff you can expect, and maybe we'll get a few additional surprises. So Freedom will be unlocked. 2024 will be the same.
Yeah, and because the Rangers, by the way, you can go find. They've got the gold stuff, so they're clearly still doing this. Yep. Carlos said, bring back JT so he can celebrate on the field. Hey, I asked this the other night. Does Justin Turner get to come to the parade, Matt?
I mean, the Dodgers wouldn't turn anybody away, I think, but these guys, they don't want to do that. This is about 2024. They don't, as much as they missed out on their celebration, this isn't something that they would want to do, especially if they're still, if it's retired players, then maybe, but if they're still playing, Cody Bellinger, I know he could opt out. He could become a free agent, but for all intents and purposes, he's on the Cubs right now. Can you imagine Chicago Cubs right fielder Cody Bellinger showing up to Dodger Stadium to celebrate? I get the sentiment, and it is unfortunate that those guys never got the celebration that they deserved, but they would be the first to tell you that that's not something they want to be part of.
Che says Ohtani's 3-run homer in Game 1 versus San Diego might be the most important and forgotten home run in the Dodgers playoff run. Without that home run, San Diego might have beaten us. We did talk about this last night as one of the best moments in the World Series run. Obviously, the Padres go up immediately, and Ohtani immediately responds with the 3-run home run in the bottom of that inning. Completely agree with this. Again, I was not suggesting Ohtani was without a single good moment in this postseason. Just that obviously because of the shoulder injury, even slightly before the shoulder injury, obviously he fell short of expectations, to say the very least, for the postseason as a whole, but even more so in the biggest moments and in the biggest games. But I agree with you, Che. That home run, I hope does not get forgotten. I imagine 5 years from now, I will have forgotten that home run, but that'll be a mistake because, to your point, the NLDS was the only series the Dodgers played in which they were trailing, and the only series they played in which they faced elimination. And so every little thing that happened in that series was of magnified importance. Ohtani's home run in Game 1 can't be forgotten.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's do a little topical stuff here, Matt. There were a lot of interesting quotes after the World Series, guys getting to say some things, but one of the most interesting ones came from Mookie Betts on the Fox Sports post-game show set, which I have said many times on the show was not something I was interested in watching or engaging with. But hey, if it's after a World Series win, you could talk me into just about anything. While he was at the desk, he was asked about the moment in the game prior when he went to go catch a ball down the right field line, successfully did, and then had two losers from New York try and pull the ball out of his glove, yank his hand away from it, and just in one of the most bizarre disrespect quote afterwards when asked, he said, "It's the second time in my life I've ever wanted to fight someone." Anthony said on our postgame show that night, that dude's lucky Mookie didn't just cock back and punch him in the face because he deserved it the way he was grabbing his hand and reaching at his glove. What did you make, like, looking back now, 48 hours removed from that moment, and then hearing Mookie Betts saying, "That's the second time in my life I wanted to fight someone"? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It was refreshing to hear that from Mookie because the interviews that we had from him and other players after the game was very much, oh, yeah, it happened. It is what it is. No big deal, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's over with, I think was something that was a quote that Mookie used. Dave Roberts said, they ejected him. It's fine. Freddie Freeman said, I didn't really see it. I know Mookie made the catch, though. And so nobody really wanted to go there. And I can understand it from the standpoint of, look, you just played game 4 of the World Series. Like you're up 3-1, but you're looking to close it out the next night. And so that's fine. Like you want to kind of downplay it. You don't want the focus you don't want to become distracted by something that, not that it doesn't matter, but it was done with. The fans were ejected. At the time that we were getting those comments, it wasn't clear what was going to come later that night from both the media and the Yankees' initial response. So to get a little bit of more honest remarks from Mookie, I think was good, and it was entertaining. And look, no, I don't think anybody faults him for feeling that way. Like,
No.
Aside from one person that I saw in the media, everybody agreed that there's no room for that in baseball, and maybe two, because I know that the article was shared somewhat surprisingly by another reputable, respected source in the space. I don't know. Like, we got on Dodger fans when they were throwing stuff onto the field in that whole fiasco, because there's no space for that. Like,
no,
I am all for it. Look, if you're gonna have some banter with a player and you don't get disrespectful and it's just good natured kind of talking trash to each other, fine. Like, fans enjoy that. I think some players enjoy it too. Like, great.
Yeah.
The minute you start throwing stuff, the minute you grab a player and put hands on, and credit to Aaron Boone, the Yankees manager, for the next day coming out and very strongly saying, like, there is no space for putting hands on anybody, and they needed to be ejected and this and that. That was good. But I mean, there are multiple ways we can go with Mookie. Great. I'm glad we got the honesty from him. It was disappointing to see how the media, more so and the space that we're in, the fans, I get it. Like, they're going to be, look, I'm not naive to think that there unfortunately are probably some Dodger fans who may have done the same thing, unfortunately. And I would be sitting here saying the same thing. Don't do that. Like, you can hurt the player. Like, if you want to try and make a play, like if you wanted to make a play on the ball because Mookie was going into the stands, go for it. You're not interfering at that point. But what are you doing grabbing his glove? And then these guys, or at least one of them specifically, doubling and tripling down, saying, yeah, like, we've always talked about it. If they come into our space, that's what we're going to do. We're going to play D, I think was one of the quotes that they, like, it was just moronic.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I'll just say it. The ESPN article that came out that night, calling the guy a beaut, interviewing him, mentioning his name, making him sound like a hero, that was then retweeted by Jeff Passan, who I love. Jeff Passan, he wrote a great article. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I just thought it was like such low-hanging fruit. Like, you and I are in the business, not at the same stratosphere of a guy like Jeff Passan, or even the guy who wrote this article for ESPN. But, like, we all know what we could do to, like, get ourselves a name and make ourselves a reputation. And yet, like, we're not interested in doing that because it's not good content. It's not, like, sustainable content. It's not what we want to be known for, or how we want to sort of build ourselves and our show and our brand up, so to speak. And so to see somebody take the low-hanging fruit and to make a big deal out of it, and then to, like, quote unquote, get rewarded by going on all these shows all day and talking about how he met with this guy, and, like, it was just so gross to me. It was so disgusting. And so, again, shout out to Mookie for being mature enough to not give the Yankees or Yankee fans any sort of ammo in the midst of a series and games in which they were in New York and downplaying it at the time. And at the same time, shout out to him for being honest after the World Series and saying, yeah, I wanted to fight that guy. Because I think all of us were like, you should have wanted to fight that guy. Because, I think we can look at it after and say, he grabbed his glove, he grabbed his hand. But like, imagine being a player that goes into the stands and is interacting with total strangers that you have no idea like what kind of security they've had to pass through to get there and what their intentions are and how much alcohol they've had. And all of a sudden, this guy starts grabbing your glove and his buddy starts grabbing your arm. Like, imagine the things that go through your mind about what could happen next. I had a friend look at me and say, the Malice in the Palace didn't start by something all that different from this type of thing. Like, it's unpredictable and who knows what happens next. And so I don't blame Mookie for being defensive. If anything, I'm impressed that feeling this, he was able to restrain himself and not actually follow through on clearly what his body wanted to do.
Yeah, and not even just the physical act, because I think, maybe a lot of players would have been able, like, I don't think you're going to necessarily see Mookie or any other player jump into the stands and throw a blow, but he very easily could have gone right back up to the wall, started pointing at the guy, yelling, maybe using some expletives, getting upset. And I would have understood that reaction and said, well, yeah, like, look at what he was doing. But he didn't even do that. I mean, he fully restrained himself in the moment. So that was, credit to him. And I mean, I just all around, it was an unfortunate scenario. I think I even saw a clip that Fox, either going to commercial or coming back from one of their commercials, had that fan like cheer, like he was like the first one on like the video montage of fans cheering. And I like, what were you guys doing? And things were said by the broadcast team. Like, it was just an unfortunate situation all around.
Yeah. The broadcast, like, basically watching it play out, giving a play-by-play of like, holy crap, he's grabbing his glove and he's grabbing. And then it was like, that's hilarious, or whatever the line was. And it's like, what are we doing, people? Like, and again, I tweeted, and this isn't just because they're Yankee fans. Like, we came on the night of the Dodgers throwing stuff onto the field and saying, get the hell out of here with that stuff. Like, Dodgers fans, Yankees fans. Like, but imagine if somebody from ESPN had been like, hey, let me introduce you to Jerry, who was the first guy to throw his beer at Jurickson Profar. He's an awesome dude. Like, he's hilarious. Look who he's friends with and look how fun he is. Like, I would have been saying the exact same thing. So anyways, shout out to Mookie. Didn't fight the guy, even though he definitely wanted to. And we get to put a bow on a crazy story that I hope I forget about, and I hope everybody forgets about as we move on and celebrate this World Series. One last comment, Matt. One last topic, excuse me, that I want to talk about. Shohei Ohtani. Dave Roberts in some post-game press conference, post-World Series press conference, referred to the fact that he was, quote, he was playing with one arm in the postseason. Most guys would probably tap out, but he was not going to be denied it, playing and posting and being in the lineup. What did you make of this? Was this injury worse than we knew of, or was he just using language that could just simply be referring to the guy that had a dead arm and a sore shoulder, who was trying to figure out life with one shoulder that worked and one that maybe didn't?
Maybe somewhere in the middle. I think that it was impacting Ohtani more than the Dodgers and Ohtani led on. I think you could, at least verbally, I think you could see in his at-bats that clearly he was affected by it. And that's not me trying to be critical of him. It's certainly understandable. You dislocate your shoulder, whether partially or full dislocation, like, doesn't sound fun either way. And I'm sure you're going to be feeling the effects of that. But Ohtani, I know there's the Jeff Passan report. Like, he had the report of Ohtani sending a text message referencing Bellinger's shoulder injury from 2020 and saying, hey, like, that won a World Series, so hopefully this will be the same. And lo and behold, it was. So I know that he was trying to be optimistic before. We were told that the MRI didn't show any issue with the labrum or other tendons and stuff like that, that it was just the partial dislocation. So fine. But again, like, seeing what we saw and then hearing Dave Roberts come out after the fact and say, yeah, he was basically, down to one arm. Like, and we saw it, like, what concerned me a lot more, I think, would be how Ohtani handled it when he was on base and not wanting to let it hang and needing to, even when he was running, like holding the collar of his jersey, basically, because at that point, like, you're not into your natural running motion. I think you're probably not running as fast as you normally could if you were. And so that was worrisome. And then now to hear Dave Roberts' comments after they won the World Series, like, I'm a little concerned that maybe there's, something going on, and that it might be more serious than we were let on. And, or look, it could just be he needs a month to fully recover. He wasn't going to get that in the World Series. Once, obviously, now that we've reached that point in the year, he'll be fine. I referenced earlier the other domino ripple effect to all of this is what it means for pitching, because surgery has not been deemed necessary, but it has also not been ruled out. And we're very early into the offseason that I don't know when we'll get that answer. But if he needs surgery, what does that do then for pitching? Because now you're going a period where I imagine like you can't, like, even though he throws right-handed, your left shoulder, you pull it down with the glove, stuff like that will be impacted. So then what does it mean for next year is where I start to get, a little worried.
Yeah. And again, I'm not A, a medical expert, B, familiar with all of the details of Shohei Ohtani's shoulder injury. I've dislocated my shoulder. I've experienced subluxation, which is what they claim this was. Those are two different things. I dislocated my shoulder twice. I needed surgery. And in between those two dislocations would be a subluxation, which is where it pops out and then pops right back in. Subluxation, if that's accurate, if what they're telling us is accurate, I would be very, very surprised if it required surgery. Typically, especially in his left shoulder, not the shoulder he throws with. Obviously, he swings, but that is like quintessential prime candidate, physical therapy, build up strength, improve flexibility, etc. Now, if anybody wants to assume they're getting accurate information from the Dodgers, we just found out Freddie Freeman had broken ribs and we didn't know about it. So do that with that what you will. But from my perspective, what we do know of it now, I would be surprised if it required surgery. You mentioned it is his left shoulder, not his right. So maybe he takes a few weeks off from pitching. But I mean, if he could swing a bat with any degree of power, obviously it was probably hurting or making it worse. You could probably play catch and he could start doing some of the, 4 months out, 5 months, 6 months out from needing to be able to pitch. I imagine he can do some of those exercises. So we'll see. We'll see how that one all plays out. We've got another super chat here. And then if you've got any questions, Matt and I'll stay in here for about 5 to 10 more minutes to answer some of those. So feel free to start throwing those in the chat. Carlos clarified when he talked about bring back JT so he can celebrate on the field. He was saying bring him back next season, not to the parade, but actually just bring him back to the 2025 Los Angeles Dodgers. Where he's at in his career, the Dodgers having a designated hitter, I think that would be highly unlikely. If Justin Turner was back on the Dodgers, Matt, I would say it would be as a coach of some sort, more likely than as a player, given the current roster construction. I'm not saying he's going to retire. I'm just saying if you told me Justin Turner was on the Dodgers, I would say, oh, is he replacing new Miami Marlins manager Clayton McCullough as the first base coach for the Dodgers? That type of thing seems more likely to me than Turner actually playing for this team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the current roster outlook just not a fit anymore.
Yeah. Cordena says, did the Dodgers find their next shortstop with Tommy Edman? He's under contract for 1 more year. Whether he's playing shortstop or center field or some combination of both, he'll be a Dodger. What do you think? I mean, is Tommy Edman the type of guy that the Dodgers might look at and say, hey, we could see ourselves extending this guy beyond just the 1 year that we've got? Obviously, NLCS MVP. He's 29 years old. Has the type of profile that you would sort of assume over the next 5 to 6 years would not age terribly. He's not, I'm always nervous about the Trey Turner types who are so hyper dependent on speed or athleticism or something like that. Tommy Edman, who's kind of your stereotypical quote unquote ball player, who just kind of does all the little things really, really well, bat to ball skills with some athleticism. Like that's the type of guy I would bet on. So, would you be surprised and or would you be happy if it got announced that the Dodgers reached some sort of extension with Tommy Edman this offseason?
I would be surprised if they do an extension right now. I don't think that you need to make that type of decision with him. He had a remarkable run, and the Dodgers, I don't know, like we've discussed several players, like I don't know if they win the World Series without him, just because I'm not sure if they get to that point without him type thing. So that an extension right now would surprise me. To the question specifically of did they find their next shortstop, I think potentially. And the beauty of this is the Dodgers are in a position where if a premier shortstop becomes available, either via trade or if they make a splash in free agency, which I'd have to look at the group of players. So maybe I don't know which shortstops off the
Ha-Sung
top of
Kim?
my head.
Ha-Sung Kim, interesting to you?
Not too much. But if there is, that type of addition, then you just move Tommy Edman into center field and you don't feel like you're missing a beat. Conversely, if there's a big center fielder that you can potentially
Willie
acquire.
Adames, by the way, is also a free agent. I should
That's right.
mention
I couldn't remember. Yeah, I couldn't remember if he was a free. That's right. I couldn't remember if
there
he
were
had one more
rumors
year.
about him coming to an extension, and I couldn't remember whether those rumors ended, but he is a free agent.
Yeah. So something like that. Or if you find a premier center fielder, then you plug him in there and you keep Tommy Edman at shortstop. And I think either way, you feel pretty great, pretty good.
Yeah. Well, they have Kevin Kiermaier could come back and play center field.
So I mean, I know like Kiermaier himself said he wasn't necessarily sure, like he was sort of rethinking retirement, but MLB posted a graphic today, like kind of congratulating him on his careers. And I thought,
it's great.
That would be kind of funny if he decides that he's coming back and he's still playing. But anyway.
Juan Soto, just right field, Mookie Betts in center field, Tommy Edman in shortstop, maybe Teoscar in left.
I'm the wrong guy to sell. If Juan Soto's on the Dodgers, he needs to be playing left field for me.
Okay. Timmy wants to know any advice to deal with the long offseason without baseball.
Yeah, you read DodgerBlue.com and you come tune into the live shows that we're going to try and do as often as we can for you guys.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can recommend. I mean, it's been a little bit, actually trending back up. So college football, you can dive back into that if your team is.
Yeah, how's
winning,
your team doing this year,
Jeff,
Matt? How is USC?
They're on a 1 week winning streak, so we're good. We're good right now. Let's see what else. I mean, basketball. If we obviously have
Lakers Nation. Shout out to Lakers Nation. Bronny James scoring his first bucket, getting the net out of Cleveland. Big stories, big time stuff.
Yeah. So, Timmy, there's a few ideas. If you need some more, let us know. We'll see what we can come up with.
Read a book. Books are good.
There are actually, I do want to, I have Andy McCullough's book on Clayton Kershaw that I think I need to finally crack open. Hopefully I'll have some time this off season.
Yeah, and I recommended Daybreak at Chavez Ravine is a book. Eric Sherman we had on, he wrote that book. And Fernando, his birthday tomorrow. There's going to be a huge party. I don't know if you heard about it, but Fernando's birthday / World Series celebration tomorrow. But that book's really good. So there's a couple book recommendations. Aaron says, will Gavin Lux be traded in the offseason? What do you think, Matt?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I think
they roll. I think they roll the dice. I think they try to find something that maybe is a little bit more permanent type thing that might fit the roster a little bit better. And yeah.
I mean, obviously a lot of this comes down to what does Major League Baseball, what does the league around think about Gavin Lux? He has 2 more years of team control arbitration. So he's entered into year 2. It looks like, SpotTrack's got an arbitration guess of about $3 million for Gavin Lux next season. I know I'm the high man on Gavin Lux. He plays second base. If you erased your brain of all of the expectations that you had for Gavin Lux coming into the season, all of the expectations you had of Gavin Lux playing shortstop, if you just erased that and then woke up today and somebody showed you Gavin Lux's 2024 stats and said, hey, this guy played an above average defensive second base and put together this offensive streak, even maybe saying, hey, you know what? The last 3.5, 4 months of the season, he was actually a lot better than he was at the beginning of the year. In a 3-2 count with the bases loaded in the World Series, this guy put a ball deep enough to center field, not only to score the runner from third, but to set up another sacrifice fly for Mookie Betts because that ball was hit so deep that the runner could move from second to third. He reached base in about a third of his plate appearances in the World Series. I just think you would put together and say, we have that guy for 2 more years. He's making $3 million and we don't have an obvious backup second baseman. Why? Why would you get rid of this guy?
Because Mookie Betts is your second baseman.
No.
They had
Who's
that
play the outfield.
They had that plan going into this season for a reason, and it was to preserve his long-term health, which I don't think something like that would necessarily change. And because of that, he's only getting a year older, so I don't know. I think that could be maybe the biggest driver behind it.
Yeah, again, sure, fine. The best laid plans, they change sometimes. And if you have a second baseman and he's under contract, he doesn't cost you anything on a roster that's going to cost you $1 billion. Trading a $3 million second baseman so that you could go sign a right fielder to play Mookie Betts at second base, like who that seems crazy. I mean, Andy Pages, I guess, is a guy. James Outman is a guy. I don't know. Neither of them overwhelmed me. I wonder. I'll ask you this while I look it up. From a weighted runs created plus perspective, I know you love this measure.
Oh boy, here we go.
Let me get my average.
Hold on. Let me get my calculator. Hold on.
Yeah. All I'm asking you is this: who do you think had a higher weighted runs created plus this year? Do you think it was Pages or Lux?
I mean, I feel like this is a trick question, so I have to say Lux.
No, I don't know the answer. I'm looking it up right now. The fact that you have to think about it tells me.
I think Lux narrowly edged him.
Okay, this is hilarious.
Tied.
Dead even. Both of them were exactly league average offensively. So there you go. That's pretty funny. And again, you can make cases. Pages was a rookie. He's going to improve. Hey, Gavin Lux was way better in the second half than he was in the first half. I think in a lot of people's minds are like, Pages way better. It's like, wasn't. Turns out, it's a fun one. Anyways, I swear, I had no idea. I was looking up on Fangraphs. 100 weighted runs created plus for both of those guys this year. So that's hilarious. Dodgers Dave, any ideas on which free agent pitchers they'll sign? Roki Sasaki?
Corbin Burns. I don't know if anybody saw his tweet after the Dodgers won the World Series. You could maybe read some tea leaves that he may or may not be interested.
What did he say? I didn't see it.
It was just like some IMO. He quote tweeted, I think like a graphic saying the Dodgers won the World Series, and it was just some eye emojis or something like that. But you know, it's social media, so it's open to interpretation, and that's one that I think people are sort of running with. Yeah,
Corbin Burns only has 5,400 followers on Twitter. Matt, it's interesting. Just saying.
If he comes to the Dodgers, that changes overnight.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Three sets of eye emojis to MLB tweeting.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember. 6
total eyes for those that don't have calculators out. Okay, last question. J.O. Punk. Realistically, what does our 5 to 6 starting pitcher lineup look like next year? I'm glad you said 6. I think there's going to be 6 of them. Yamamoto, probably the guy that you feel the best about penciling in here. Clayton Kershaw will be on the team and recovered from all of the injuries that we know of. That's 2. Shohei Ohtani, I think, is going to be 3. Tyler Glasnow scares the hell out of me. I've said it all along. Guys like that don't tend to have minor elbow injuries that just go away on their own after 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to hesitate there. I think Walker Buehler is back. So that's 4. Give me Roki Sasaki, 5. And, actually, there's Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin. How about that? I'll give you 7 guys. Sasaki maybe doesn't start in the rotation. Give me Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin as the 5th and 6th options.
I will go, no particular order, but Kershaw.
Okay. That's Buehler. Number 1 starter. I like that. Matt's got Kershaw as the number 1 starter for the Dodgers. You all heard it here first.
Yeah. Kershaw, Buehler, Yamamoto, Miller.
Oof.
Gonsolin.
Is there a different Miller? Bryce Miller?
Gonsolin.
Oh, my God, Catman. You're just out on Dustin May. You just refuse to say his name.
I'm not sure if he'll be ready yet. And I guess it didn't say opening day.
Because his arm was going to be ready. There was talk of him possibly coming back from the arm side. Now, I mean, I know he probably couldn't pitch for a couple months or a month or something.
Do you remember when Walker Buehler was going to return at the end of the season, and then Tony Gonsolin was going to return at the end of the season? So, yes.
Gonsolin almost did. Gonsolin made a rehab appearance. All right. They told us the truth there.
So did Buehler. Buehler made rehab appearances 2 years ago last year before they shut him down.
They never lie to us.
Yeah. Right. Well, that was 5.
So are you out on Glass now too? Like, do you share the same reservations that I do?
If I needed to bet one way or the other, I would bet no, there's going to be something there.
Okay.
And it's not, it's close. It's close to a toss up for me. Like, I don't think it's complete doom and gloom. And I'm basing some of that off. He was on foul territory maybe about a week or so ago, 5 days at this point, and he said things were going well. I think the caveat to that is, when you're not necessarily throwing and pitching, like, yeah, you can, your body, I think, can recover and you can feel healthy and strong and get back to a good point. But then once he starts ramping up again, is there going to be a setback? So that's where my concern is with Glass now. And Sasaki, I'm just not sure. Like, there's just been so much. Look, if he gets posted, then sure, like, put him in the Dodgers rotation. I just don't know if he is. And there's been so much back and forth on will he, is he able to force their hand, stuff like that, that I don't even, like, I can't count it as a realistic possibility right now.
Okay. It's fair. It's fair. Last question, BMR. Jeff, how much money have you already spent on championship merchandise? I'm at about $100. And part of that is because something is going to be gifted to me. So if value of things headed my way, I'm at about 140. 2 hats, a t-shirt, and may or may not be a jersey that may or may not have been purchased from Nike or MLB. We'll say that. So add it all up, we're about $100. So there you go.
That's really, BC says 1K. I don't know if he was answering for you or if that is BC saying for himself.
Yeah,
BC, sounds like you did some serious damage. If it's you, I hope you got a lot of good things for that.
Yeah,
and I
look,
know we plugged. Is it homage? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Homage. HOMAGE.
There's also well, we're waiting for stuff from them. If you guys are following us on social media, if you look at the description for this video or this podcast, you'll see a nice link to FOCO. They have got a ton of bobbleheads, a ton of other merchandise, Christmas themed stuff, ornaments, replica trophies, baseballs. So definitely check that out. Like I said, if you're on YouTube video, the link is in the description. If you're on the podcast, then you could find it there as well. They got a bunch of good stuff.
I don't.
I know. I haven't.
What bobbleheads they got?
Yeah, I haven't done it yet. Well, I know what they have. I haven't bought. I've been able to hold off on buying stuff from them so far, but they make great products, and so yeah, there's another retailer.
Kirk Gibson, Freddie Freeman, dual bobblehead. That one's sold out already. Like, these are the things that, like, I mean, I know the answer to who buys this, but there's one that's Freddie Freeman as a Dodger and Freddie Freeman as a Brave hitting home runs. And I'm like, again, I know one person who's going to purchase that bobblehead and he works for our company. But, like, other than that person, who's buying that bobblehead, Matt? Why is there a Dodgers/Brave bobblehead?
For Freddie Freeman's family members who appreciate his Braves career and his Dodgers career.
What? 8? They've sold 8. There you go. 1 to the person that we all know. And that's about it. We got a Dave Roberts World Series. Maybe that's what I got to get. Somebody accused me of having 100 Dave Roberts bobbleheads last time. The truth is I have 0 Dave Roberts bobbleheads, and now I'm mad about it. And now
I thought you had one. I thought you had a sliding one or something.
Oh, you know what? I might have Dave Roberts player one. You're right. I have to look. Maybe I do. I'll have to double check. But I might need this Dodgers World Series 2024. Like I just said, he might have been the most important person in the 2024 World Series. That's the type of thing you got. Oh, there we go. Oh, dang it. Sold out. The Freddie Freeman walk-off home run, that grand slam, that would have been the bobblehead right there.
Yeah.
Sold out. A good one. Sold out. So there you go. Oh, we got Edman holding the World Series trophy. That's a cool one. Ohtani with the World Series trophy.
Yeah, they did a bunch. Yeah, they did a bunch of players with the World Series trophy.
Freddie Freeman holding the World Series. I got a bunch of Freddie Freeman ones. Mookie holding it. Man, I don't know what I need to do. Anyways, we got options. We need a Buehler, one of these. That's going to be a good bobblehead. 2025 Dodgers regular season bobbleheads. Oh my gosh, there's going to be some heaters in that.
I was thinking about that too. I imagine they'll also do a replica World Series ring.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
maybe one of those mystery ones where you just get a random one again.
Maybe, and actually, that when they did the giveaway. They did that mystery giveaway a couple years ago, and I remember thinking I wanted to get, because fortunately, when we're there, credential, they do bring the giveaways to the press. I was hoping to get the 88 World Series ring. I ended up with 81. I was a little bummed out, but then I thought about it like, oh, that would have been perfect for, not would have been, it was perfect now for this year to kind of look back on getting that one. But yeah, I think they're going to lean pretty heavily into World Series. There'll probably be a Freddie Freeman World Series MVP bobblehead. A bunch of different World Series themed, and it should be exciting. And honestly, that stuff might get announced somewhat soon. They do it pretty early. So
Yeah.
we might not be too far from getting some details on that.
Freddie Freeman holding the World Series MVP. That's another cool bobblehead. They got dialed up here. Couple of those, 2 different holding the series MVP bobbleheads. One of my favorite bobbleheads I have, one of the only ones I've gone out of my way to purchase, was one where Corey Seager's got a World Series trophy in one hand and his World Series MVP in the other. That's a classic. So we'll see. All right, folks, thanks for joining us. 2,200 people. Season's over. Nobody cares. Dodgers are World Series champs. 24 hours they've been. And it feels still really damn good. So shout out to the Dodgers for being World Series champions. Parade tomorrow. Going to be a ton of fun. I believe MLB Network, Sportsnet LA, local TV if you're in LA. If you are like me and not in LA and do not have Sportsnet LA and maybe do not even have MLB Network, it sounds like MLB.com is going to be streaming the parade for free. Don't quote me on that. Again, the internet, which has never lied to me once, told me that MLB.com is going to be sort of quote unquote simulcasting that. So if you don't have access, check out MLB.com. That's where I will be as well. That is Matt Moreno. I am Jeff Spiegel. Check out DodgerBlue.com. If you missed any of the post-game press conference stuff, we've got it right here on this YouTube page. And if you're new, thanks for joining us. Subscribe, ring the notification bell. Check us out via podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, DodgerHeads podcast, rate, review. We would greatly appreciate it. Folks, enjoy the rest of your night. Go Dodgers. And guess what? Still champs!